Greetings, everybody, and welcome to CP Biology. Let me get the party started here. Now, we are going to dive into a little bit about animals, and as you can see right here, we actually have a little mantis that looks like a plant or a piece of the plant, maybe perhaps a flower. I wonder what it's. Oh, wait. I wonder why it's disguised as a petal on the flower. All right, so some of the learning objectives in which we're going to discuss today is just the characteristics that all animals share, the functions animals must have in order to survive, features of body plans and designs. So, what is an animal? It has to be heterotrophic. Um, if you don't remember what that word is, think about plants being autotrophic. So, if plants are autotrophic, animals cannot make their own food. So think of humans as heterotrophic. We are consumers. Additionally, all animals are multicellular. Okay, so when we looked at amoebas under the microscope, although they looked like little tiny animals, they were unicellular and they are not considered animals. They were definitely part of the protists. And then eukaryotic. So we are in the domain eukaryote kingdom animal. And I'll show you a little family tree there in just a second. But remember, eukaryotes contain nucleuses. Prokaryotes, such as archaea and bacteria, do not have a nucleus or specialized organelles. And then lastly, all animals lack cell walls. So plants have cell walls and plasma membranes. We just have plasma membranes. All right. So invertebrates, there's a lot of them. 95% approximately, give or take a couple hundred million, are all invertebrates. So all animals, 95% of them are invertebrates. So think of something that doesn't have a backbone or anything like that. So I'm trying to remember. I hope Turbo's doing okay in the classroom right now. This is something I was thinking about. And then we have obviously worms, jellyfish, sponges. Weird thing. You don't think of your sponges as being an animal, but it is, such as coral as well. All right, so let's go. And then again, invertebrates, no vertebral column, spinal column. All right, so if you were to divide animals into vertebrates and invertebrates, chordates are part of vertebrates. Not every vertebrate is a chordate, but almost all of them are. So again, if invertebrates take up 95% of all the animals, chordates or chordates are less than 5%. So think about all the animals that have a spinal column. That's less than 5% of all animals on planet Earth. Weird. Because when you think of an animal, you think of something that has a brain, two eyes, and a central nervous system, but not so. All right, so the dorsal hollow nerve cord. The dorsal hollow nerve cord is where the central nervous system is located. And then we have something called a notochord. All right, so all chordates or chordates have a notochord, and it's located right here. All right, so it's the primitive backbone found in all chordates during an embryo. Okay, this is what's going to eventually form into that hardened backbone that you and I so dearly beloved. All right, tail that extends behind the anus. All right. Wait a second? Do I have a tailbone? Well, if you've ever fallen off a skateboard or fallen on your bum and broken your tailbone, you definitely know that we all have tailbones. All right. And then the pharyngeal pouches is something in regards to your pharynx, GI tract, and respiratory tract. So what do animals do to survive? So what is the normal day in an animal? Eat, sleep, poop, and reproduce. Let's see if we got them all. Maintain homeostasis. That sounds a lot better than what I just said, a lot more professional. Your body is constantly in a state of homeostasis. It got a little bit hotter out recently. Therefore, your body is going to try to cool itself down by producing sweat or panting. So we're going to gather and respond to information. So we're going to use our senses. Animals are going to be able to distribute oxygen for aerobic respiration. And then we're going to also eliminate that carbon dioxide or other ways, okay? And then lastly, animals reproduce. So all of which is right here is eat, sleep, reproduce, and poop at the end of the day. All right, so now let's talk about different levels of organization, body symmetry, as well as cephalization. So remember this tree of life. Oops, went too far. We have this tree of life. Bacteria came first from our last universal common ancestor. Then came archaea. Ironically enough, archaea resemble that of eukaryotes, which we are a part of, than bacteria. It's weird. All right, so here we come along on our family tree. We have already talked about protists. So a protist is anything that is not an animal, fungi, or plants. So slime molds, flagellates, diplomats, all of these, amoebas, all of these are considered protists. Now, remember, protists most likely involved into animal-like, fungi-like, and plant-like. Remember, if the plant-like ones were most likely that of had organelles such as chloroplasts, they were able to photosynthesize. And then so animals is right here. So here's our four kingdoms. Remember, we have protists, animals, fungi, and plants. 4. All right, so here we go. Here is animals. So this is the kingdom animals. And let me move my little screen here. We have chordata, which is the chordates. Remember, almost every single chordate has a solid backbone, with the exception of 1 or 2 species. So that's why if you look at the cladogram right here, we have a little family that snuck into the chordata, chordates, but then we have backbones, and pretty much everybody has a backbone. Okay, so we have the invertebrates, and then we have the chordates, which again, almost everybody has a backbone. All right, now as you can see, we have radial symmetry, most likely evolved first, and then bilateral symmetry, most likely evolved much later. Okay, so what is radial symmetry and what is bilateral symmetry? All right. Now, radial symmetry is you can subdivide the organism in any which direction. You're always going to have the same thing. But bilateral symmetry is that you can only divide the organism in half to where you could have a mirror image of itself. Okay, so we have the dorsal side. So once you have a bilateral symmetry, then you start talking about, well, what side are we talking about? Are we talking about the left, the right, the front, the end, the top, the bottom? So dorsal is the top. Think of the dorsal fin. Ventral is the bottom. Anterior head is the front. And then posterior, your posterium is the end, okay? All right. Segmentation. Segmentation occurs only in bilateral symmetry, animals with bilateral symmetry. So we see like porpoise. This could be a porpoise or fish. We have a grasshopper, but then again, we do not have any type of segmentation in those radial organisms. Oh, radial symmetry, sorry. Cephalization. Can anybody guess what a cephalization means? Anybody? It's a head. Concentration of the sense organs and nerve cells at the anterior end, aka the head. So a bundle of nerves, if you get a lot of bundle of nerves and you and they start accumulating towards the front of the animal, and eventually that became what we known as a brain. Okay, so do we call every bundle of nerves a quote unquote brain? Perhaps, perhaps not, but it's really important that you guys understand that the central nervous system has the brain on the anterior head for the development of cephalization, and that we call that the head because that is the direction of movement. Okay. All right. Again, only animals with bilateral symmetry have cephalization. You're not going to have a starfish having a centralized location of all of its bundles of nerves and whatnot. And that is it. Cheers, everybody. See you soon.